Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh. Every single year we do this, I think of it's the most wonderful time of the... But, of course, so it's not Christmas. It's Oscar time.
It's Oscars? I thought it was Emmys because...
I love it. I love it. Is that a third one?
I got a third Emmy. Yep, here it is.
Wow,
Thanks. Oh, it's backwards.
Congratulations.
There you go.
I'm so happy you get to segue into showing us. Good for you, dude. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
You're a 3-time Emmy Award winner.
Yeah. Another technical
So we
Emmy,
can no longer use the Utah. Give me 2. So it's 3 times. You're a 3-time Emmy.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't know where this third one's going to end up. Maybe my grandma.
Well, first of all, where's the second one at? I see the first one back
My mom's
there,
got the second one.
Oh, that's sweet. That's nice. That's nice. Of course she should have that. Because when we were talking about one podcast, I was like, you have 2 of them. And I pointed and I was like, wait, there's only one there.
Yeah, she's got it like on her mantle. So
yeah, I'm dumbfounded because I wasn't expecting it. But I'm so glad that we get to talk about that because, wow, you're a 3-time. Oh!
I told you if I won another Emmy, I would not
hold it up again.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hold it up again.
There you go.
Were you there for it? Or?
No, I didn't go. It was in Nashville, so I didn't go. So the regional Emmys for my region are in Nashville. So
that's amazing. It almost looks
and they
fake.
got my name on it and everything.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I can see it. Well, I know because I know how it is.
There you go. That's it.
It almost looks like you digitally put that in because it seems like unreal that you have one to begin with.
That I can just hold it like this.
Oh my gosh, keep doing it. It's amazing. Wow, I'm going to cry a little bit. Stop. Okay. No,
a lot of people don't know this, I guess, but it says around the circle, it says the National Academy of Television and Sciences. So,
well, you know it. Because you get to look at it like that.
Well, yeah.
Amazing.
Seen it before.
You have 2 more Emmys than Susan Lucci. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yes.
She only has 1 and 19
She has more daytime Emmys than I do. So,
no, she only has 1. Out of the
I have 0 daytime Emmys.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
But, yes.
I mean, technically.
I had that short stint.
I have 0 daytime Emmys also.
Yeah, I had that short stint on Young and the Restless, but it didn't go well, so,
Now, that might make me jealous. That thought might make me... The other stuff, I'm super happy for you and doesn't make me jealous or envious on any level because I'm like, you deserve it. You're a good guy. You work really hard. Good for you. Now, if you said you were on a soap and were nominated for an Emmy, I might have a little bit of an issue with that.
That makes
Maybe
sense.
not,
Yeah.
but I'd be like, hook me up, brother. What's up? Wow. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So Oscar time. And what we normally do is we're going to talk about the acting categories. We're going to talk about original and adapted screenplay. We're going to talk about director and best picture. And we have decided that those will be the main categories that we're going to talk about. But if you want to interject anything about cinematography or editing or any of the above, let's do it. But what we normally do is we will try to predict who will win. And we also like to talk about who we would vote for if we had a vote, which is a thing nowadays. Yeah. Just... I didn't get an Emmy for it, but I think I came up with that idea years ago. But whatever.
Yeah, of course.
I gotta pull it from somewhere. So you've given me the privilege of leading the conversation, and you don't know any category we're going to start with. So we're just going to start with Best Director because why not?
There's Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest.
So, who will win? Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. And who would I vote for? Martin Scorsese.
Jonathan Glazer for me.
Yeah. And I get it. I 100% get it. And I keep thinking to myself, any other year, this would be Scorsese's year.
Yeah, that's true.
Any other year, this should be Jonathan Glazer's time.
Yeah.
Because they both directed films that I cannot stop thinking about. I cannot. And Christopher Nolan, it's his time. He made the juggernaut known as Oppenheimer.
You know what's funny? They're all historical dramas too, like based on true story dramas.
Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things is based on.
Oh, no. Those three that we're talking about.
Oh, those three.
Yes.
Well, I mean, life is stranger than fiction, so might as well tell the real stories and get them out there. So my buddy Terry, hi Terry, who is a fan and a friend of the podcast, he kind of picked up on my less than over enthusiasm about Oppenheimer. Now, two things happened. I went back and re-listened to our Oppenheimer podcast, which I never do. I usually listen to bits, and I usually listen to certain things that you say you're going to edit certain ways, and I just check in and I see if something I said made sense, and if it doesn't make sense, I'm like, yeah, I didn't make sense of that. I have to be clear on that the next time I'm talking about something like that, so forth and so on. But I listened to the whole podcast, and if you listen, I do not bag on that movie as much as I thought that I did. I had legitimate questions that I think were answered by me watching it a second time. And so we can talk about that later on when we get to Best Picture. But it's Christopher Nolan's year, and he made, if you think about it, the hardest film to make out of the bunch in a way. For one thing, imagine walking into a room now. Christopher Nolan probably has no problem getting movies funded at this point, as well he shouldn't. But imagine going, okay, so I have this idea for this theoretical physicist and the making of the atomic bomb, and it's about that like guy we've often vilified, Oppenheimer. Can I have $600 million? And he did it, and he pulled it off, and it's really great storytelling, and that's because of him. But my heart will be with Scorsese, because I personally think I think he did the best job out of the five. The storytelling, I never felt the length of that. I never felt uninterested in it. The heart of the film is where it's supposed to be. The narrative of the film is understandable, and it needs to be talked about. It had a deep impact on me. So I think I would kiss Martin Scorsese's ass no matter where we were at, but this is different. I think that movie is the best made movie of the year. Nothing against Nolan, nothing against Oppenheimer. I get it, that film. So
I think what you said about Killers of the Flower Moon, I feel that way about Oppenheimer. And as far as like, I didn't feel the length of that film, because those are two really long movies. And I really never felt the length of Oppenheimer. And I think that does come down to editing, which Jennifer Lame, the editor of Oppenheimer, is nominated. And I do think she should win. I don't know who's going to win.
She's going to win.
Okay. Well, I do think she should win. But that was kind of like the part for me. It's like, if he wins Best Director, like he's there in the editing room, and it's his, it's his baby, it's his thing to get across the finish line. It's his script. So, knowing what to shoot, knowing what to put on screen, and knowing what to take out, that's the key. And so,
and when you list Christopher Nolan's bio for me, there's not a film I don't go, that's a really interesting movie. Not one. And I mean, he made Batman real.
Yeah, there you go.
For real. So, okay, so we're going to just jump right into it. We're going to do Best Actor.
Okay. We got Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction.
Go.
Oh, I think that Cillian Murphy will win. Didn't he just win the SAG? Okay. And I think Paul Giamatti should win.
I'm 100% in agreement all the way down the line.
Okay.
I think Cillian Murphy will win, and you'll hear me repeating this later on in the podcast. There just comes a time, and we talked about this with Rami Malek. I'm not saying this is a reason to give somebody an Oscar, but I can't imagine what it would be like to win every precursor and then not win the Oscar. And once again, my buddy Terry, we were talking about this today, and he goes, has anybody won the Oscar who hasn't won all those awards? And I was like, I think it's different nowadays because there's so many of the precursors. I actually think they should do the Oscars first and then let everything else fall behind. That way we would get a pure take on what people thought during the Oscars without any kind of, I mean, you have
There's
to
not
have
a pressure,
right.
really.
Well, and also,
have
how
a
could you
narrative.
not be influenced by the person who's won everything? How can you not? You go into watching the movie thinking this person won the SAG and Golden Globe. How can you not end up thinking they deserve to win the Oscar? But I think Cillian Murphy, since he has won the SAG, he's won everything. And rewatching that film showed me the subtle power of Cillian Murphy. The subtleties he puts in are amazing. The things that become these epic over-the-top moments would have been epic and over the top if he hadn't handled it the way that he handled. There's that scene where he finds out about Florence Pugh and then takes off, but you never see him take off. You see him, Emily Blunt comes back and finds him in the woods up against the rock. That scene's amazing. He's amazing.
Right. He has to modulate his emotions a lot more than a theoretical physicist, a lot more than you would think a theoretical physicist would. So, yeah.
And by just the fact that he's in every second of that film. The opening sequence he's not in with the Senate hearing, and then some scenes with Robert Downey Jr. and Alden, blah, 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 blah.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Yes, thank you. Ehrenreich. How do I not know that by now? Yes, and he's spectacular. Other than those scenes, and they're not that long of scenes in general, Cillian Murphy's in every scene of that movie, and he holds it, and he holds it playing a physicist, and he holds it by telling us facts that your teacher would have told you that would have put you to sleep. And I have now come to the conclusion that when we talked about the Oppenheimer, that you were right about managing that town being the most important thing that he does. Because my question was, well, what does he do to be considered the grandfather of the atomic bomb? See, your dog agrees with me.
Yes.
See, yes. Speak, Paul, speak. Thank you, doggy. But what he does, and I didn't see the first time I saw the movie, I saw it, but it didn't affect me the way it did the second time, is he goes, that guy would be good for this, that guy would be good for that, she will be good for that, they will be good for that. And he puts it all together that way. So his brain power is used in a different way than I thought that we were going to see. So it's not necessarily that was a bad thing in the film. Not that I said it was a bad thing, but it was a question that I had. And Cillian Murphy, the enthusiasm that comes out of his mouth when he's talking about, oh, that person can do this in that particular scene, when he's grouping those people together, is so subtle and so real that I believe that that's how Oppenheimer would have done it. So Cillian Murphy will win. I would vote for Paul Giamatti too.
And so what is it about? So what is it about the Paul Giamatti performance? How much of it is the performance and how much of it is the character, and how much of it is like the marriage of that actor and that character?
Yes.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
See, and I haven't watched Billions. Like I don't know the Billions Paul Giamatti. But I mean, I know the Sideways Paul Giamatti. And
so you've not seen any of the first 2 episodes of Billionaire?
No.
Or Billionaires? Oh, well, that's a whole nother thing.
So is that something where it's like he's playing a totally different character? Obviously, he's playing like a really high up type of a guy, whereas in this one, he's someone who's kind of been beaten down and has been, dejected and has all of these like, quote unquote, social stumbling blocks that he has to deal with. And so, it's a different character. So is it that he's
Paul
able
Giamatti's
to change?
always had, he said he was going to thank Howard Stern if he won the Oscar. He told Howard Stern that.
Yeah.
Because the very first movie of any significant role was Body Parts.
Private Parts?
Private Parts, Body Parts. Yeah. Where he plays Pig Vomit. That's his nickname.
Oh, jeez.
And I think he's credited as Pig Vomit too. I'm not sure. But he sort of always played that kind of...
Yeah. The dejected or
the pain in the butt guy who's just like
character.
just the hair in the mole, and he's just he's been curmudgeonly since he was 30, so this role, and I'm stealing this from somebody on Twitter, on X, they said it would be nice to see Paul Giamatti win because he just plays an everyday guy. He doesn't play somebody who's a physicist. He doesn't play somebody who is a rock star. He doesn't play anybody that doesn't have the same emotional baggage that, finger quotes, normal people have. That just the everyday guy who doesn't have these crazy, he doesn't have a disease. He doesn't have a disability. He doesn't have any of those things that he's not a real person. It's a made up character based on probably 1,000 other people that writer has come in contact with, but he's just the everyday guy. And I think the humanity that he shows in that film are in the most unexpected ways. And yes, it's the screenplay that does that, but it's how he handles it too. Example, and we could talk about this later on our best of podcast or on our best picture that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. There is when he says to the kid at dinner when Davine comes in and he's like, get up, stand up, be respectful. And he's like, why? He's like, get up and stand up because this woman is important to just everything. Get up. And you're like, this guy does have his humanity. He does have feelings. He does respect the things that are due respecting. And she has earned his respect, obviously, over the years. And she takes him down a couple pegs throughout the film. Yeah, he hated you. I love that scene when he's talking about her son being in his class. Yeah, he hated you. She handles that so well. So it's the fact that he could walk right off the screen and just be that teacher in that prep school is something I find difficult to conceptualize as an actor to ground that in reality. And really, Cillian Murphy could probably fall into the same category because he has no crazy over the top emotional things. He has to, the thing that Cillian Murphy does that Paul Giamatti doesn't have to do is Cillian Murphy has to say kind of the same thing over and over again. He has to say, I was never a member of the Communist Party. He says that like 4 or 5 times and he has to cut people off each time that nope, never a member. And he has to say that. So in my acting mind, when you see that on the paper, it's hard to imagine doing it 5 different ways. So they both play an everyday guy on some level, but something about the heart of Paul Giamatti's character got me. Plus, I have always thought that he should be up for many more Oscars than he has been. He's been up for 2. Some people thought Sideways, but he was up for Cinderella Man. And a lot of people say that was kind of a nomination because he didn't get a nomination, a makeup nomination because he didn't get one for Sideways. I completely 100% disagree. The heart and soul of that character in Cinderella Man, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's
a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh, when she walks into their house and there's nothing but a card table there and he walks out of there. I don't know if you remember that. He's pretty much sold everything to keep this boxer doing what he's doing.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Yeah. And the look on his face of simultaneous shame and modesty and humbleness that he's like living in this big, huge penthouse apartment and he literally has folding chairs and a card table because he's given everything else away. Wow. And he's a little embarrassed by it. It's really profound. And I think he does a lot of the same things in The Holdovers. So Cillian Murphy will win. Paul Giamatti, I would vote for.
Yeah, I'm right in line with you.
Okay, so let's do Best Supporting Actress.
Supporting Actress, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrara for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers.
So this is an easy one because Davine Joy will win, and I would vote for her.
Me too. I think she should win. When you line her up against everybody else on that list, now maybe there's other supporting actresses that could show up on there, but these are the nominees, and I think that Davine Joy Randolph deserves it because she's able to, and like you said, she's able to embody that character, and she's infinitely believable. I think that's the key. Is that she doesn't have a lot of lines. There's scenes of her watching television. There's scenes of her cooking. There's scenes of her at the table. There's scenes of her reacting reacting to other people, how other people are affected by her or react to her, whether it's because she's black or whether it's because she's lost her son in Vietnam. And she's having to hold it together the whole time. And then there's the one scene at the Christmas party. She just can't do it anymore. And that's where you get,
and it's shot from her behind. You see her backside. Yeah. Most of that scene is from her backside.
Yeah. She's not she's not blubbering, she's not crying, she's not emoting she's sharp with someone, and then she tries to hide, what she's going through. She tries to hide, her outward emotions, because that's been what she's had to do this whole time. So,
and what about the scene where she's going through her kids' stuff and she holds up the baby shoes?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
That's an Oscar-winning moment right there. And I think everybody else on this list is great. And I'm happy for America Ferrera for being nominated for Barbie. We've talked about this a little bit. And to hell with all the other conversation that might come with that, and the disrespect that I've heard online about her nomination. How dare them? First of all, she's nominated. So sit down and, with all due respect, shut up. She is an Oscar nominee. She deserves to be. And everybody else on the list is great. Dave,
I haven't
Dave
seen
Hine
The Color Purple yet, but
deserving.
I've seen
deserving.
else,
She knocks it out. Daniel Brooks is.
Well, we've seen her before. I mean, I've seen her in other stuff before. I think. Now, wasn't she in Orange Is the New Black? I think she was in. Yeah. So.
And then also Peacemaker.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's great in that show.
Yeah, she's very good in that. So what I'll say is this: if Dave Hine wasn't this year, my heart would be with Jodie Foster, because I even texted you the moment after I saw that film. When Jodie Foster is nominated for this movie, she will deserve it. She's never been better. She's never been better. And you just said before the podcast that you guys had seen it, and there's such a calmness to her as an actress now. And maybe that's because, she came out on the Golden Globes, whatever it may be.
It might be because she's been doing it for literally 50 years.
Yeah. But there is a difference in the calmness of her performance.
Yeah.
The subtleties are there, and she's just utterly believable. Utterly believable. And she has that intangible thing that makes her an Oscar nominee. So when she showed up on the list, I was like, I'm not a bit surprised. But there is nobody else this year. And if for some strange twist of weird fate that Dave Hine doesn't win, it'll be the most upsetting upset ever. Back to that theory about being nominated for everything. She has won everything, not just the major precursors, everything. Yeah. All of the local critic awards, all of the state, all of the National Board of Reviews, all of them. She's won all of them. Right. And for her to not take home the Oscar, and her acceptance speeches and all these awards that she won, she's so human and so down to earth. And she thanks the character for being a thankless character, of people that she represents by playing this character that go unseen by other people. And maybe because of her being black, or maybe because of her being a cook, or maybe because she's lost a child, but I think just because she's a human being that walks through life without any notice. And there's billions of them, and she has thanked them every speech. So I will be happy for her, and it'll be a good moment when she wins. And plus she's looked fantastic every award show. I'm just saying. She's like, I get to stand up here with this beautiful gown. I'm like, and you look great in it. So, all right. So that was Best Supporting Actress. Let's go to Best Actress.
Best Actress, Annette Bening for Nyad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things.
Hell of a year.
Yeah.
Hell of a year.
Lily Gladstone will win, and I think Lily Gladstone should win.
100% agree.
I mean, yeah. I would, Sandra Hüller puts in an amazing performance, and 2 amazing performances this year, but her performance in Anatomy of a Fall, it obviously has not gone unnoticed, but you just have an embodiment of a character in what Lily Gladstone did, and it's it doesn't seem, it seems like it's unapologetic, and it's also lived in. Even though I don't think she's Osage, she did spend time and energy, understanding the Osage people, and that's seeing the her portrayal is good. And also I can't imagine like not going up against, but playing across from Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, and
directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, everybody who is around her is like, this is just another Tuesday, and she's like, okay, I'm doing this, and she did it.
Yeah, and she's the heart of that film.
Yeah,
and we discussed when we first talked about Killers of the Flower Moon that people were talking about she was a supporting character and that she should be ranked in the supporting actress category. And I was like, who has seen this film that thought that? First of all, even if you're not talking about screen time, which she's on screen a lot. She's not like she's in the background of that movie. She is on screen a lot, but also the presence and her heart and the substance that she gets from that character sticks out further than any of those other people that we talked about. And there are moments in that film you're completely perplexed by why she's doing what she's doing or why they're doing what they're doing and how she's not like understanding it and seeing it, but really she is, and she does, and she loves him, so we can justify some of it. There's all of that. And then just the fact that, well, first of all, spoiler, she gets sick in the film. Okay. And she's sick for a prominent part of that movie. Yeah. And that can be so overplayed and so acting and so I'm sick, but she plays it as if she's not sick, but really physically she is, but she's playing like she's just ignoring all of that. Yeah. And the obstacle she has with that comes across. And then you see the scene in the basement when he opens the door, and that guttural Captain Phillips scream that she gives is like nothing else on this list. It's just not. I have said from moment one, she should win the Oscar. I believe she will. I would have voted for her. There's no doubt about it. But this list is unfair. This list is a list of people who is the winner in another year. All four of them were kind of, yeah, it's okay. They didn't win. This list is everybody could potentially win, and you would be okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
after seeing Nyad, I mean, Annette Bening, the commitment to that role physically, I mean, it's a lot for someone.
I can't even imagine.
It's not for anyone to go through. Someone at her age, I'm not trying to say that obviously Diane and I, did it, but her putting herself in that position, it's also difficult. So, yeah.
Well, I saw an interview with her and they were talking about, wow, you were in the water the whole entire time. And how was that? And she was like, yeah, there were 8-9 hour days. And Jodie Foster was like, like 10-12 hour days. She was in the water. And Annette Bening, in the most humble way, goes, well, some of it was in a pool in blah, 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 Burbank or wherever it was.
Great.
And the interviewer went, you were still in the water all day long.
That's right.
And, some of the shots and some of the things that she has to go through and the hallucinations, you buy into that because of her, because of her performance. And we have to talk about Emma Stone because any other
we have
year,
talked about Emma Stone.
Right. We have.
we did a whole episode on it, but yes.
In this list of people, and not to say Carey Mulligan is not worthy either, because Carey Mulligan is, in my opinion, that film. That's the reason why I kept going with that film. We talked about the pool scene where she jumps in the pool and we're not really sure what the motivation was, but when she does it, who cares? She's doing something and she's affecting me. And the what's the word I'm looking for? The not modesty, the pride, the absolute dignity that she has playing that character. And then you have the moment after he does the big 6-minute thing, and we talked about this before.
Yes. Yeah.
She's so great. It's like, one of these days, Carrie, sorry, you just keep coming up against all these people.
But then I think that I don't know how motivated she is as far as the Academy Awards are concerned. But like, for certain people, it's like there's that hunger. There's, I think, another actor, another person on this list, Bradley Cooper. He has this like insane hunger, and it seems like it keeps him going. But
To win an Oscar?
Yeah.
I think that's a perception that's been built around
him.
Or
to be respected. Let's just say to be respected.
Well, he should let that one go then. Because
he also has respect from like Spike Lee and Steven Spielberg. It's like, yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
And you. Yeah.
I'm important too.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'll have 3 Emmys, but that's where you're supposed to hold it up. So yes, we should have a little. Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. Bradley's like, really? You have to show off your statue when you're talking about me not having one? Is that really what you're doing here? Yes, Bradley, Mr. Cooper. That's all. Bradley Cooper is a profoundly great actor. And, in the end, no matter what happens with him and the Golden Boy, he will forever, he has to rest easy on what he's done. He has put in some powerful performances. He just has. We'll get to him in just a second. So back to Emma Stone, because we digressed into Carey Mulligan and then digressed into poor Bradley Cooper, who doesn't have the statue you have. But
he didn't win an Emmy for Alias?
I don't think so.
No, I was joking.
He was on Nip Tuck. He should have been. It should have been some form of recognition for that accolade wise, because that's a crazy character he plays on that show. Oh, wow. Anyway, he does things on that show that I was like, okay. Anyway, so Emma Stone, Poor Things. It's an utter shame that this list is as great as it is, because I said on the podcast, if it wasn't for Lily Gladstone, Emma Stone would be a lock for her second Oscar. And she has been going back and forth. She won the BAFTA. Lily Gladstone won the SAG. She won the comedy Golden Globe. Lily Gladstone won the drama Golden Globe. I think that's right. And so, and by any stretch of the examination of the Oscars, this is where Emma Stone should have won her second Oscar. It just is. She speaks a completely different language. Yes, it's English, but is it? She walks, she does things that are just on the page would be like, wow. The reading of it. And even Mark Ruffalo talked about how they're in the middle of it going, are we trusting this guy? Is this a good idea? What we're doing right here, is it going to be what we think it's going to be? Or because it could have been a disaster.
But it's her second movie with Yorgos Lanthimos too. Right. So it's kind of like, you're good. We're good.
By the way, we'll get to him in just a second. I keep saying I know how to pronounce his name. I do not. Most people are saying Yorgos Lanthimos. Yeah. So you were right. But in her speech, she said, when you talk to him, you call him Yorgo. When you talk directly to him, you call him Yorgo.
Yorgo.
Yes. So when you're referring to him, when she talked to him from the stage, she said Yorgo. So I'm not sure if you can talk about him as Yorgos. So I'm back to Yorgos Lanthimos for anybody who's keeping count.
There we go.
So any other year, it would be Emma Stone's Oscar. And if there is a surprise of the night, it will be here. But I'm not sure I'm going to like that surprise.
You think it would be Emma Stone instead
if it's a surprise, because she's gone back and forth and she's picked up a lot of notice for this film, as she should.
Yeah.
But last night on the SAG, people went, oh yeah, Lily Gladstone is who we need. And we do. So, there you go. All right. So let's go to adapted screenplay.
Adapted screenplay, American Fiction, Cord Jefferson, Barbie, Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, Poor Things, Tony McNamara, and The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer. I guess Oppenheimer's going to win. Is that right? I don't know. I think Barbie should win. But that's just like my opinion, man.
I love it.
It's too hard to do what they did. Like, on paper, whatever you want to say, like, the concept doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And it worked. So that's, you got to start somewhere. Yes, they had Margot Robbie. Yes, they had Ryan Gosling. Yes, they had, a really good budget. But without that screenplay, it doesn't work at all. So yeah.
And I would agree with you, but I will say this, and I'm kind of joking around, but I'm also being kind of serious. Other than production design, costumes, and makeup, I think Oppenheimer's taken all of the other 11 Oscars. Okay. 10, because I think it's nominated for 13. I think it's winning everything. It's not going to be a clean sweep, but who knows? It could very easily sweep. And no one, they built a town.
They did build a town.
They built a town.
But the production design, I'm just looking at production design. You've got Poor Things. Oh my God. You've got Barbie. Amazing.
Right.
And you've got Killers of the Flower Moon. They built, essentially a town, a portion of a town.
They built history.
There you go.
They took a history book and went, there. That's what we want.
And Napoleon's on there too, but I have not seen Napoleon yet.
I haven't either, but it looks like one of those films where production value is high, and it could be the surprise when, because sometimes that happens, the movie that you're least expecting, and then you watch it and you go, okay, I get it.
It also got visual effects, a nomination for visual effects too. So, I mean,
interesting. Must have to do with the battles and stuff like that. So, adapted screenplay, Oppenheimer will win, and I get it, but I think Barbie should win, and I would vote for Barbie because
you would vote for Barbie. Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
absolutely, hands down. I've seen it twice, and I am absolutely dumbfounded in the best way that they made that work. And it's all in the writing. And I said that on the original podcast. It's all in the concept and the actual execution of the words. Because without the screenplay, the way that it is, for all of the upheaval it's caused, let me make my that's a bit ridiculous discussion look. For all the upheaval, it got its point across. And if you didn't get the point, that's what the movie was for. It's for somebody like you. And the idea that Ken has a heart and soul, and that Barbie is stronger than him when it comes to being able to hold her stuff together, even though she loses it a few times. And then just the concept alone of having her sit at the bus stop and talk to that elderly lady, and the elderly lady's reaction is Oscar worthy to me. It needs to be in the film. They were going to take it out. They wanted it taken out. What? Why is it we're always hearing stories of executives who are like, that scene's like redundant, and it's the best scene in the movie.
Or it's slow. Yeah, it makes
Over
it too
the Rainbow
slow,
makes it too slow. Take it out. Can you even? So, and I also want Greta Gerwig to have an Oscar. And I think this would be the way to silence all of the conflict about her not being nominated for director and Margot Robbie not being nominated. That shouldn't be a reason she should win.
Yeah.
But if and when she does win, people will now have to go, well, she won the one that's really, in retrospect, when we look back on it years from now, will be the one that was the most important, because her words and what she said in that movie are important.
And we're kind of flying blind because they're not even going to have the WGA awards, the Writers Guild awards, until after the Oscars because of the writer's strike this year. So we don't. There's not going to be an award for that until after the Oscars. Kind of like a
precursor to what we think might win at the Oscars. I don't know how much the WGA affects the Oscars, though.
Oh, okay. So it's not the same as like SAG and all the rest of them. Okay.
Well, I think that SAG is so interesting because it's the Actors Guild, so they are the biggest guild, and they also. That's why I think you can predict the acting Oscars off of that, because they are the biggest guild in the Academy, I think.
Gotcha. The biggest component of the Academy.
I think I might be wrong about that. It might be the writers. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's one of the largest guild that actually votes for the general Oscars, for everything at the Oscars. It's not specific to that. So, I mean, the screenplays are outstanding. The Zone of Interest. Like, this is an unfair year. All of these movies should be the one, and the other four should be like, yeah, they were good movies, but that really should win. All five of these could potentially win. And I'm not counting out American Fiction.
And I was going to say, as a first script,
smart,
Cord
funny,
Jefferson, knocked it out of the park.
Like unbelievable.
It's incisive. I would. That script is. It's like surgical. I was wondering when I was going to bring these things up. So during American Fiction, I talked about some of the tropes that I thought were overused when it came to the gay character. And you actually
changed my view about that. Because when you said, and I completely changed my view. You said during the coming out scene, I said, why does it have to be so tragic and so devastating? Everybody always coming out to their parents or not coming out to their parents. Mm-hmm. And you said, because what Sterling K. Brown is trying to tell his brother is to be yourself. And if you are yourself and accept yourself for who you are, don't be this fictional writer about this fictional world that you don't know anything about. Write what is true to you, because you need to be true to yourself. And I wasn't true to myself, so I couldn't be true to myself with our dad. So don't do that. That I think is right. And I think you were right. And I was going to make an Emmy joke, but I want to be a little bit more serious about it.
He would be mad if you made an Emmy
joke.
We
need a sound effect. Like a Jonathan Glazer sound. No, much more like whoa, Emmy. Anyway, there's a million inside here, so go lightly down your darkened way. But you actually made me realize it's the best use of a coming out story ever, because it really has a purpose other than the tragedy of a gay man not being who he is and not being able to tell his father, because that's usually why that story's told. Because I regret, or my father never knew who I was, or my parents didn't know, or I'm truly not who I am because I didn't get to come out to my parents. That's usually the connotation between a coming out story. But in your perspective of the film, it was about telling his brother to be himself. And I was like, that is the best use of a coming out story ever. Like, if that's what was meant with Cord Jefferson, if that's what he meant, which I now am taking it from a 3-time Emmy Award winner, that is the best coming out story. So thank you, because I reworked that in my head and I was like, why am I feeling so defensive about that? There are obvious reasons why, but that made me go, this is one of the best screenplays of the year. And if that's the purpose of that scene, it should be taught in screenwriting class, that this is the reason to use a character thing.
A device.
Device.
Yeah.
If you're going to use the device of coming out and it's tragic, use it for this, use it for the other person.
Yeah.
Not for a comment on.
That's the other angle. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so thank you. It made me love that movie even more. So if it's a surprise win, so be it. Yeah. But Oppenheimer, I think it's going straight down the line.
Take it to the bank. Huh? Okay.
But, and I think only a few of the nominations won't win, like I said. Okay, so let's go to supporting actor.
All right, so supporting actor is Sterling K. Brown, American Fiction. Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon. Robert Downey Jr., Oppenheimer. Ryan Gosling, Barbie. And Mark Ruffalo, Poor Things.
It's unfair. It's unfair. Every single one of the performances, and I know you have some issue with Mark Ruffalo, and I respect that. I think maybe this is where you keep the Emmy down, because I think you're wrong. But all 5 of these performances are Oscar-worthy performances, and they're on the same list. It doesn't happen this often like this. Yeah. Even all the 10 nominations for Best Picture are all worthy of the win.
Yeah.
All of them. There's always one or two that you go, okay, that flew in because, it's the big blockbuster, or it's because it's the hardest movie to make, or it's the one that made the most money, whatever. Not these nominations. So anyway, go ahead.
I agree that I think the Robert Downey Jr. is going to win, but I need to see Oppenheimer again. I've only seen it once, and it's been a while, so I do need to revisit it, because Sterling K. Brown's performance is still present in my mind, and Robert De Niro's performance is still present in my mind, even though I've only seen that movie once, and I saw it right around the same time I saw Oppenheimer, I guess a little bit later. But I mean, those two just kind of are stewing around in my head. And Ryan Gosling is in Barbie, he was great, but that was a specific part that I feel like only he could have played. So how do you gauge that? Okay, Ryan Gosling, way to go at being Ryan Gosling in a movie that only Ryan Gosling can play in. I don't know. But I'm floating around the Sterling K. Brown, Robert De Niro area, and I don't really know exactly, which one would get the edge from me. I saw something on, well, it was like film Twitter, I guess, or yeah, something like that. Somebody was just like, essentially like downplaying it. Why isn't anybody talking about one of the best performances in a while from one of the greatest actors alive and talking about Robert De Niro? And it's like, I mean, he's not doing Righteous Kill. He's not doing Bad Grandpa. It's, it's a good role, and he is doing it. I mean, he's being this, this bad man, and he's making it lived in, and he's making it, he's putting it on screen. So, the duplicitousness of that character, like he's getting it done. He's putting in the work. He's not just showing up for a paycheck. So that should be awarded too. But I mean, I don't know.
Okay. So who will win?
Robert Downey Jr.
Who would you vote for? Emmy feet to the fire.
Emmy
wings to the fire.
I'd probably vote for Sterling K. Brown because, he's.
Okay. Let's unpack all of that. Yeah. So let's start with that. I think Sterling K. Brown would be surprised how many votes he actually got. I think he'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Because there's always that one performance that has affected people, and yet there's a front runner, and there always will be. That's why I'm saying do the Oscars first. Yeah. And then we can find out what everybody thinks about Robert Downey Jr. or everybody thinks about Sterling K. Brown. Do the Oscars first, and then we have an organic, genuine way of, I mean, it's human beings, so nobody's perfect, so it won't be a perfect thing. But you would still have, I think, in my opinion, a much more organic first take on who you would vote for, and it might change the outcome of the Oscars. So I think it's wonderful that you would vote for Sterling K. Brown. I think it's wonderful that you brought up Robert De Niro, but that also brings up a fact about that movie that I am dumbfounded about. How is it gone so shoved to the side? It is not considered even a threat to Oppenheimer. I don't get it. I don't have a problem with Oppenheimer being the juggernaut that it is. Roll on, Nolan. Roll on. I love you.
Does it come down to Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert Downey Jr. are bad guys? Are like, dishonorable characters at the center of the film? And are
who
people
you
just
love?
Yeah, and are probably people just not on board with wanting to see that?
I don't know. I think the juggernaut of Oppenheimer the machine is so huge that it has rolled over everything else. And because it just shouldn't have happened. It statistically shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
First of all, you had a pleasant summer movie to go and see, Barbie. You didn't know you were going to get smacked around as much as you were in that movie. So that's like popcorn movie, so they thought. How that Oppenheimer Barbie thing started is beyond my comprehension. And also, I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that this movie about a physicist made $1.5 billion, and a movie about a toy that is part of our being, the zeitgeist of being human beings at this point, or the lexicon of being human beings at this point, made $1.5 billion, or how much those movies, they made billions of dollars. Two completely juxtaposed subjects, but yet in a way similar to where you basically find out you're dealing with how humans dealt with a situation. If you want to boil it down to, and we've talked about how Poor Things is the same thing as Barbie's. It's just more Frankenstein-esque in its take, and it's Yorgos Lanthimos. It's like, what would Yorgos Lanthimos do with a Barbie film? What would Greta Gerwig do with Poor Things? Like, it would be probably similar in a way.
Similar.
So how Killers of the Flower Moon has been so just ignored is beyond my comprehension, because it is on some level for me superior to the other films. But that's because I took to that movie, and I haven't seen it twice, not yet. So I might feel a little different, because I'm now realizing that maybe a second turn at a film can make me feel different, but usually it only complements what I've already felt, or it clarifies what I've felt. Thus your reaction to that scene we were just talking about with Sterling K. Brown. Thus my reaction to Oppenheimer a second time. It answered a lot of questions. Side note, we'll talk about this later. Alex Wolff, I said was only in one scene and didn't speak. It's because I didn't recognize him.
Okay.
Because he sounds completely different and pretty much looks completely different than anything else. And so I was like, I am proud that he's that good of an actor that I didn't even recognize him the first time I saw him.
Blends in, yep.
But he's in a significant part of that opening part of that film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
when he's collecting people. Yeah.
Yeah. And
the
tone of his
Berkeley,
voice is different than I've ever heard. And I was like, I'm so happy. And I'm not ignorant. I didn't miss him. He disappeared from me,
nice.
Which is a compliment.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm picking up on the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is not who you think should be the front runner. Those are my words, not yours.
I don't remember Robert Downey Jr. as much. He's not as remarkable as these other actors in their roles.
Interesting. I would tend to disagree.
Okay.
And I thought the first time, because you asked me, do you think that, or maybe my buddy Terry asked me, do you think it's the Robert Downey Jr.'s time narrative?
It's like Iron Man's dead, now we need to give him an Oscar, or what?
Well, okay. That's another thing, side note, that bothers me a little bit. They're all like, oh, we forgot he's an Academy Award winning or Academy Award nominated actor. We forgot he knew how to act.
Yeah.
And Tropic Thunder, which is controversial.
That's right.
But it's a great nomination if you look at it in the right way, and the wrong ways are bad. Sure. I get all that. His mother was like, don't do it, Robert. Don't do that movie. I got a bad feeling. And somehow he sidestepped that. It's been brought up since. But anyway, so he's 2-time Oscar nominee, and everybody's like, oh, he really can act. I'm like, did you not see his death scene in Endgame? And did you not see him saying goodbye to Tom Holland in whatever that first film is called?
Infinity War.
Infinity War. That's acting, people. He crushed my soul in those scenes, and he's been good in a lot of other Iron Man films. The third one he's great in. Not my favorite of the bunch, but he's great when he's in like the introspective, like, I'm not going to put the suit back on. And the kid's like, what? He's very good. So it's not a surprise to me that he can act, and I didn't need to be reminded of it. And I think that's a little crappy to like downplay his ability because he's done something superficial as a comic book character. The reason why it works is because there's intense dimension to his character, even though he is Iron Man. Okay, that said, even on a second time of watching Oppenheimer, there's not a moment I don't think he gets right. He is, first of all, he tells you what he's doing in the beginning of that movie, and I completely forgot about that. Like he tells you exactly what his motivation is in that first Senate hearing. He makes a joke about it, but he's being 100% real.
Yeah.
When he makes a joke about Albert Einstein and now the scientists didn't like me, har, 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 har.
Yep.
And then you find out that's why he does everything that he does. And that bothered me as a character, as a person. A human being would make that choice. But the long and the short of it is that I don't care about it's his time. I don't care about he's proven that he's an actor again. I don't care about that. There is an intangible quality about his performance in Oppenheimer that is Oscar worthy. Only him, and I will say this about everybody that we think will win. Only that actor in this film at this time. Devine, Joy Randolph, only her. Other people could have done it, but only her at this moment in that film. Lily Gladstone, who could have done it? Only her in this moment. And I believe that applies to Robert Downey Jr. also. Maybe in a second time you'll see it. But the truth of the matter is he will win, and I'm happy that he's going to win, but I would vote for Ryan Gosling. I would.
Okay. All right.
I would, because he did the impossible for me.
Okay.
He brought emotional depth to a Ken doll. And the scenes, his comic timing is brilliant, first of all.
It is. We were just rewatching The Nice Guys, which is becoming one of my favorite movies of all time. It's creeping up the list.
I love it.
It's so good. He's so good. Russell Crowe's a great straight man, and it's awesome. So anyway, go on with that.
I'm just saying that
his comedic timing's great in general.
Yeah,
now his comedic timing.
You remember when they were like, you don't have to say Doja. What is it? What's Casa Doja?
Mojo Dojo Casa.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to say Casa, and the little girls
Casa
the
House,
younger. Yeah, you don't have to say that. The look on his face is hysterical. It's like he simultaneously doesn't understand what they're saying, and why would you not call it that? All that. because that's what it is. And the look on his face is hilarious. And I get what you're saying. It's Ryan Gosling playing Ryan Gosling, but that could have folded inward and not worked at all. It could have been aggravating and irritating, and he has to be the antagonist in the film that he's not expected to be the antagonist in.
Yeah.
And then when he has this cathartic moment at the end, you're like, oh, this guy really does feel deeply. And then when he says to her, and it's a mean moment, and he's mean when he says, she says, nobody did this and I don't feel this way. Or I forget what they're talking about in general. About being second fiddle, and that you're not the leader of the group and you're not Barbie and stuff like that. And he turns to her and goes, so how does that feel? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, he's like manipulated this whole thing once he got back to Barbie land to show her how it feels to be second fiddle and only just Ken. Yeah. And also, he's the only one with 2 songs in the movie. And they're ridiculous songs, but they're great. And he pulls it off. And then when he says that moment at the end that I've talked about a couple of times, when he was like, it's Barbie and Ken. And then the realization that he can be just Ken.
Mm-hmm. Oscar-nominated song.
Oscar-nominated song, which is the question of the night, if he's going to actually perform it. I don't know if he will. I can't see him do it.
I hope he doesn't, because I hope that they didn't nominate that song just because they wanted him to sing it. No, I
don't think they did.
That's
I don't think they did. Yeah, it is dumb, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with those type of motivations, but I have an idealistic heart when it comes to this kind of stuff. I have kind of a naivete about this thing. I believe that people are trying their best to do their best, but that's what I want to believe because that's what I believe. So yeah. I'm going to believe that. So Robert Downey Jr. will win. I would vote for Ryan Gosling. Hell of a list though. Yeah. All right, let's do original screenplay.
Original screenplay.
Oh
All
my
right.
God.
We've got Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet and Arthur Harari. The Holdover is David Hemmingson. Maestro is Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer. May December is Sammy Birch. And Past Lives, Celine Song.
Not fair.
No.
Not fair. It's just not right. There are too many great things on this list.
Yeah.
Too many. When we look back at on it in 30, 40 years, be like, wow, those were all nominated the same year. That's a great year. That said, this is a tough one for me. Go ahead.
I just to preface all of this. So Maestro is based on a true story, I guess. I guess all this other stuff is like Past Lives is kind of
Maestro's a biopic.
Yeah, but these other ones are not. Past Lives is tangential pieces pulled, but in May December has a little bit of
inspired by,
but really like these are well fleshed out stories.
The idea of May December and Past Lives is original.
Yeah.
The idea of extracting that from that type of story is original. But you could say that about Maestro and The Holdovers too.
Yeah.
Maybe less so for Maestro for me, but that movie doesn't completely work for me 100%. Yeah. But the idea of that movie, I see why they elected to nominate it. I get it.
I think The Holdovers is going to win, and I would pick The Holdovers. But I don't know much about like what people are saying on the ground, but it was hard for me to pick The Holdovers over Anatomy of a Fall. But
that's the thing that I'm a little shocked about. Not what other people think, because I don't. Your thoughts on something are way more important than anything I've read that other people think. Well, because it's pure. It's not based on Twitter feed or based on like statistics that people can. Do they not see the pattern of how much they get wrong?
No,
they just don't see the pattern. Every year it's the same thing. Well, whoa, and the DGA, and then the Screen Actors Guild. That's the front runner. Parasite, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Blew those statistics out of the water. Oh, well, I guess this is going to win now because they won the SAG. They won the BAFTA. Parasite.
Whoops.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I'm shocked that you're saying The Holdovers. I love it.
Yeah.
I see why, but over
Anatomy of a Fall. I think so.
That's sweet.
I'm actually starting to like Because Anatomy of Fall is very calculated. It's such a calculated script. It's structurally sound. Like it's got all of the walls in the right place. But I feel like The Holdovers also has all the walls in the right place, and you don't even know they're there. And so that's the part that draws me to The Holdovers. It keeps you, and we talked about this in our podcast, is it only gives you the specific amount of information it needs to at the time that it needs to give it to you, and it keeps you engaged throughout the whole film. And that all comes down to the script. That what I just said has nothing to do with performances whatsoever. It has to do with information being given to the audience. So,
and on top of that, we've been in those rooms before. We've seen those walls before. We've been in movies with those same walls, but for whatever reason, when you're watching The Holdovers, it feels fresh and new. It's kind of like Coda. And maybe we've talked about that before. Like Coda is paint by numbers, but for whatever reason, whatever Sean Hayter interjected into that film makes it feel special and original and new, although it's not at all. Mm-mm. It is literally, you could say what was happening next, even if you had never seen films like that before.
It's almost like an after-school special, like
a little
almost.
bit. Yeah. I get that, but it is much more affecting than any of those things. Although I used to love those things when I was a kid. So, wow. Okay, so I think Anatomy of a Fall will win.
Really, you do?
I think this will be her Oscar.
I would be excited if that won. Yeah.
But I would vote for Past Lives.
Okay.
Just because I've never seen a love story like that before.
Yeah.
I was not expecting the speech and the disposition of the husband. That's new. That's original. Mm-hmm. Never in my life have I seen a character not that I've seen.
Yeah.
On film, and it probably people could prove me wrong 1,000 ways to Sunday, but for him to be as accepting and logical and understanding that this love of her life needs to have this moment, that's unconditional love.
Yeah.
He has more unconditional love than any character in a movie. I mean, once again, I'm
all
probably
year.
All year, right? And I wasn't expecting for her character to be written to actually fall apart after it, to actually be heartbroken that this was not going to progress past this point, and that it could have, and they would live happily ever after, because she's already living happily ever after, if you will. You know, minus the whole struggle of being a human being and the human condition. But so it is by far the most beautiful love story I've seen. And, you know, In the Mood for Love, you could name them over and over again. And then all the way to rom-com, sappy love story, Silver Lining Playbook. I mean, I'm all about it. But Past Lives will not leave me alone. Every time I see one of them or hear about it, it comes rushing back. And so once again, this is tough because Celine Song deserves an Oscar for this movie. So, but one would have to say so does Justine Truett. It's tough. And then also, I don't know David Hemmingston's son. I don't know him, but I mean, this is a tough category. So I'm just I'm gonna say Anatomy will win, and Past Lives I would vote for. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
I
that
can't
makes
talk
sense.
about how great these films are.
Well, that makes sense because I mean, to me, it seems like Past Lives is more of a performance based film. Like there's less words on the page, just like them in the subway and their hands like close together on the pole, and them in front of that carousel, just like sitting there and looking at each other. I mean, all of that's, well, I don't think the carousel part was written because they were supposed to shoot it with this like amazing sunset, and then like the sunset never happened, and so they had to like reframe it. They like spun around.
Did you hear what she said about that?
And she said it was better.
She said, I didn't know. I thought that I had this idea of, Magic Hour, and we couldn't get it. So, but we got what was supposed to be on screen.
Yeah. And that was probably more affecting than Magic
But
Hour.
all that stuff that you're talking about is in the screenplay.
Well, some of it is, yeah. I mean, yeah. But that, you know, that particular carousel shot or whatever. But I guess where I'm going with that is that it does make sense to me that's it's a very contained thing. And without the enacting of that, his acceptance of the husband's acceptance, like that would have fallen flat, I think. But yeah, Celine Song, I mean, she did it all though. She did the writing, she did the directing. I mean, she shepherded this thing to life. So yeah,
I think Sterling K. Brown has said that he knows he's not going to win the Oscar. And of course, Coleman Domingo was on the same talk show and he's like, you don't know that for sure. And he's like, I'm pretty sure. And I'm good with it. I'm just happy to be in the room. I think that's a really healthy way to look at it.
Sure.
And also that's a marketing tool for his next quote, whatever it may be. Well, he's an Academy Award nominated actor now, so his quote's going to go up. So that's good for him as an actor. I mean, he's probably, I'm hoping he's doing, I hope he's doing well financially from acting because he deserves to. But the point is that I think Celine Song deserves to be in the room, but I also think she deserves to be up on the stage. And how all of those people who have been bashing any of these award shows because she wasn't nominated for director, Greta Lee wasn't nominated for actress, the husband who I loved and I can never remember his name wasn't nominated for supporting, but that was a long shot. Anyway, so it would be nice for her to be in the room and be up on the stage. So the big one, because we're going an hour and 8 minutes, which is actually pretty good for one of these podcasts, because normally we're like 2 hours into it still talking about the same thing from the Oscars. So Best Picture.
John Magaro is the guy's name.
Oh, yes. I got to memorize that. Yeah. I loved him. God, I loved him. There's so many unseen supporting actor nominations or unrecognized because they didn't get nominated, but that's okay. I mean, those kind of things have a way of coming back. And when he does finally shine like he's supposed to, everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, well, he shined in this too. Where was the nomination then? But once again, look at the list. Yeah. You brought up a good point. Who would you take off? Exactly. If you had to take somebody off, who would you take off? And we were talking about director at the time when you mentioned that. And I was like, oh, yeah, who would you take off? Forget it. I'm not even going to think about this because it's impossible. And this year is really impossible to take somebody off. There's a few I could interject and say maybe him instead of him, but not really. All right. So Best Picture.
Right, Best Picture, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. That's, yeah.
It's a hell of a list.
I've heaped all this love on The Holdovers like all night, and I think Oppenheimer will win, but I think The Zone of Interest should win. So I think that movie, it's still in my head, and it's gonna be hard to get out of my head. But it's to me it's such a well-crafted movie, and it's something that Jonathan Glazer went into with a lot of preparation and a lot of ground rules, and he stuck to those ground rules, and it made the film better. It's kind of like the Dogma 95, the Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg, those guys. They're like, we're going to shoot on mini DV on digital cameras back when digital cameras looked horrible. We're going to only use existing light. We're not going to use extra external lighting or anything like that. And these are we're essentially handcuffing ourselves. Now we need to make something that's interesting. So I don't think that Jonathan Glazer did that to like handcuff himself to try to make this family who is living right outside of Auschwitz interesting. I think he did that because it served the story, and it served the story in the right way. So and it could have been blasé, it could have been visually uninteresting. It could have been overlong, but it was none of those things. It was
I think once he posed the question of what if, I believe my friend Nancy, who's also a friend of the podcast, she actually listens on a regular. Hi, Nancy. She said something along the lines of, you just got said hello to by an Emmy Award winner, by the way. She said something along the lines, and I'm not sure if this was her thought or if she was quoting somebody else, but she said, somewhere down the line, the sun had to shine in Germany during the war. Like, by all stretch of the imagination or facts, that's how nature works. There's going to be sunny, beautiful summer days outside Auschwitz, and you never see them because obviously the subject matter is, it's not a sunshiny day type of subject matter, but the fact that somebody placed this movie in that type of atmosphere was also perplexing, and also made it more complex in the thought that there were sunny days and there was sunshine and there was good weather and there were flowers and all of these things that we never think about when it comes to the Holocaust, and rightly so on some level. But what if? And the perspective of actually having somebody sunbathing right outside that wall is so mind-boggling. And I thought about this when I was thinking about this podcast. I thought in some other multiverse, this is winning Best Picture. Zone of Interest is winning Best Picture. Yeah. And it might be talked about years from now that this really should have won Best Picture. It's definitely going to win International Feature.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And if it doesn't, it'll be a shock. But I definitely think in any other year, it could be the front runner. It could be the movie that surprises people. Just not this year, because Oppenheimer will win. Yeah. That said, there's not a stinker in the bunch, and I will justify Maestro by saying there are hundreds of thousands of people who love that movie and who think it's the best film of the year and think it should be the winner of Best Picture. I see it online all the time. People have been transfixed by that film. Not me. Yeah. Not now. Maybe later. I don't know. Things have a tendency when you mature in a different way or grow in a different way, maybe in a different time of my life, it will resonate like it has for these people. So for those hundreds of thousands of people who thought it was the best picture, I'm glad it's on the list. But the list is daunting because these are all Academy Award winning films. They just should be. But Oppenheimer will win, but I would vote for Killers of the Flower Moon. It's probably going to be my favorite movie of the year. And I thought about that too already. How could you say that The Zone of Interest was your favorite movie of the year? Like, it's almost impossible to put those words together. Well, so if it turned out to be number one on the list, it wouldn't be, I couldn't articulate it as favorite. It would be, and I said it on the podcast last time, the most profound, the most affecting.
Or Best Picture is actually a good best film is not my favorite film. I mean, we say my favorite, but like for me, it's like, I'm just trying to differentiate between does this movie check all of the boxes that would be the prototypical movie? And maybe Oppenheimer does check all those boxes.
Yeah, it does.
But is it the best film? In my opinion, The Zone of Interest is the best film.
But I think maybe we're talking about two different things here. I see what you're saying. It's like saying, okay, so Birdman, that was great. I was lit up by it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about Zone of Interest too.
Yeah.
I was lit up, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And that connotates some optimism and some joy and some, but it's hard to put those words and attach it to that subject matter because I'm not worried about that per se, because I don't think anybody's going to think if I say that's a great film that I think the subject is great and those people are great or whatever.
Well, it's the Fight Club conundrum. Yeah, it's like, oh, I like Fight Club because guys beating each other up is totally cool versus I like Fight Club because it confronts consumerism and it confronts toxic masculinity, and it's like you can still like Fight Club but like it for the exact opposite reasons.
Interesting.
So,
but I just have a a thing about like being joyfully grateful for seeing Zone of Interest. Like the fact that the subject matter has to be explored at all makes it a much more reserved and respectful opinion about it. And as for Fight Club, yes, yes, and yes. And the homosexual overtones to that movie is exactly why I like that movie. All the things you said, plus that, read the book. So yes, I think Oppenheimer will win, but I think Killers of the Flower Moon is my favorite movie of the year.
All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll see you next time.